Right now, at this very moment, there are about 20,000 planes flying to the skies above Earth. Millions of people are cruising at 35,000 feet, eating tiny bags of pretzels, watching movies, and traveling across the world in just hours. But have you ever wondered, who makes all those planes? The answer, almost every single time, is one of two companies, Boeing and Airbus. These two giants have shaped the way the entire Earth travels. Today, Boeing was founded way back in 1916 in Seattle, Washington, USA, over 100 years ago. Back then, airplanes were made of wood and fabric and could barely carry one person. Boeing started small but had a big dream.
Let's talk about the planes that made history. Before jet planes, flying across the Atlantic Ocean took around 15 to 17 hours on a propeller aircraft. In 1958, Boeing launched the 707, a passenger jet that cut that time nearly in half. Suddenly, flying became faster, smoother, and more comfortable. The world felt smaller. Traveling to another continent was no longer just for the super rich. Boeing had kicked off what we now call the jet age.
But Boeing wasn't done. In 1969, they introduced what many people call the greatest commercial airplane ever, the Boeing 747. This thing was huge. It had two full decks, meaning 2 floors of seats. It could carry over 400 passengers at once. When most planes at the time held around 100, it had a famous hum that became instantly recognizable around the world. The 747 made flying affordable for regular families for the first time because you could carry more people per flight. Airlines could charge less per ticket. Flying went from being a luxury to something millions of ordinary people could do. Now, let's talk about Airbus. When they launched in 1970, Boeing basically laughed them off, but Airbus had a secret weapon: technology. In 1988, Airbus introduced the A320, and it changed aviation forever. Here's what made it special. It was one of the first passenger planes to be controlled by computers. This system is called fly-by-wire. Instead of pilots pulling on physical cables connected to the wings and tail, they gave inputs that a computer translated into movements. This made the plane safer and easier to fly. The computer could even step in to prevent the pilot from making a dangerous mistake, like pulling up too steeply and stalling the plane. The A320 was also lighter and more fuel efficient and cheaper to operate along with that. Airlines loved it, and today the A320 family is the best-selling commercial aircraft in history. Airbus wasn't done there. In 2007, Airbus went for something extraordinary, the A380, the next competitor for the Boeing 747. It was the biggest passenger plane ever built. This double-decker giant could carry up to 853 passengers. Imagine an entire school flying together in one plane. Some airlines even installed showers, bars, and private suites on board. It was an engineering marvel, but here's a twist. It was almost too big. Airlines found it hard to fill all those seats, so in 2021, Airbus sadly had to stop production. Now let's pause and think about the technology that these two giants have created. First off, we'll start off with making planes lighter. One of the biggest challenges in aviation is weight. The heavier a plane is, the more fuel it burns. The more fuel it burns, the more it costs, and it's worse for the environment. Boeing 787 Dreamliner, launched in 2011, solved this in a brilliant way. They made the plane out of carbon fiber composite instead of metal. Carbon fiber is extremely strong, but much lighter than aluminum. The result? The 787 uses 20% less fuel than older aircraft of the same size. That's huge for both airlines, saving the money and for the planet. Airbus did the same with the A350, which is made of over 50% composite materials. These two planes represent the future of flight. Number 2, quieter engines. Old jets were incredibly loud. People living near airports could barely sleep. But modern engines from both Boeing and Airbus are dramatically quieter, some up to 50% quieter than planes from 30 years ago. They achieved this through smarter engine designs, specially serrated edges on the back of the engine, called chevrons, that break up the airflow and reduce noise. This technology can be seen in multiple Airbus planes, such as the A320neo and so on. Boeing, Airbus, two companies from two different parts of the world, driven by the same dream, to make human flight better, safer, and more accessible than ever before. In just 100 years, we've got from rickety wooden biplanes that could barely leave the ground to carbon fiber planes carrying hundreds of people across the oceans in a matter of hours. The next time you buckle your seatbelt on a plane, take a moment to think about the thousands of engineers, designers, and pilots who have made your flight possible, and wonder, where will the next 100 years take us? The sky isn't the limit. It is just the beginning.